This is 630's My Journey, My Experience podcast. Stories from 630 riders about their lives and time in the saddle. I'm your host, Dustin Geiger.
Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of the My Journey, My Experience podcast. The podcast where we hear all about 630 riders' lives, experiences, and of course their time in the saddle. And today we have one of our most dedicated riders joining us, Joel Craig. Joel Craig, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
And thanks for joining us. Joel has been one of our top riders, always sharing photos in the Peddlers group and, of course, on the leaderboard, posting his rides. And we have a serious connection because Joel actually is in Chicago, living in Chicago, and riding the places that I know all about because, obviously, I grew up outside Chicago. So, thanks, Joel, for being
Thanks
here.
for having me. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
So let's go back to when you first bought your 630. I'm just curious, why 630? And had you been an avid bike rider? Have you always been riding bikes? And then what led you to getting a 630?
So I had a bike from another manufacturer.
You can say the name,
Probably.
actually. It's okay.
I had an Electra Townie, but I had an old one before the pre-Trek time, which I loved. I absolutely loved that bike. I got it in about 2006. And what led me to that bike was I had been injured in a construction accident a couple years earlier and had 3-level spinal fusion. So that impacted a lot of the things that I could do. I was always very athletic growing up. I played like professional 12-inch softball, played basketball in the wintertime, was always really active. And then all of that kind of came crashing down. So I needed something to try and stay active. And so I went to a little bike shop in Joliet, and he kind of directed me to this Townie that I had, and I rode it up until just a couple years ago. I hit a pothole in Chicago, which you can imagine what that was like, and my frame cracked.
Wow.
So it cracked the frame like below the seat. So I was without a bike. So I was looking for something different, not necessarily different design wise, but just I wasn't happy with the direction Electra was going. Their prices were going up, their designs were changing. They were kind of like corporate big bike now when they got bought out by Trek. And I had heard about 630 on another biking group, and I wasn't familiar with it. Did a little research. I'm like, this is kind of my thing. You guys are kind of a smaller business, smaller company, independent, do your own designs. It looked like exactly what I was looking for. And then going through the models, I saw the Every Journey, and like this is the bike for me. So I got it. I guess about 2 years ago. The last couple of years has been. I got it right before the pandemic, so it was like 2 years ago, and it's gotten me through the lockdown and everything, and I just love the bike. It's great to ride. It's fun to ride. It looks good. It's comfortable. Does everything I want it to do. I've been really happy with it. So I've put a ton of miles on it, driving around the city.
Any idea how
Various
many
trails
miles?
in the area. No. Probably 1,000 or more.
I mean, you're
Which
riding weekly?
looking at, well, yeah, but the weather's been kind of bad here this year. It's been so cold and wet all
Oh,
spring that I haven't really gotten a chance to be out a lot. Um, but I see a dietitian over on the lakefront, so I at least ride there every Tuesday. So if anyone's familiar with the city, it's on Sheridan Road, which is basically a block off the lakefront. So for me to get there, it's like 3 miles one way. So it's a 6 mile round trip, 6.5 mile round trip to do that. So I do that at least every Tuesday, um, when it's not raining. And and then the rest of the week, I just got a new bike rack on my car, so now I can haul my bike around. I got a new car. I was in a car accident a year ago, and my old car got smashed, so it took me a year to get a new one. Just got a new bike rack on it, so now I can haul my bike around. So I've actually been up to the Des Plaines River Trail. I tend to go up to the Wisconsin border and ride south from there, and I can get a good 20-mile ride in. And so that's kind of one of my go-to places. But it's just been cold and wet and windy. So it's been hard to get out this spring. But once the weather kind of settles in, I'm generally out at least 3 days a week, sometimes more. And I try to do between 50 and 100 miles a week just to try and stay active. So my rides tend to come in bunches though. Like if I go out, I'm going to do like 20 or 30 miles. I don't generally do a lot of, other than my trip to the dietitian, there's not a lot of sub 10-mile rides. It's generally 20 or more. Um,
That's great.
I just feel like I've accomplished something when I do that. So,
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
and it's comfortable. I mean, um, I'm kind of a big guy, 6'2". I'm a lot less than I was a couple years ago. I'm still about 280, but I was getting up to like 350, 360 there, and which, you know, I started to get my health back in order and stuff, and bike riding has helped with that a lot. Um,
But
but
you were riding the every journey when you were 350, 360,
when
you're
I
saying?
got to every journey, yeah, I was still like 350,
Hmm.
um, and I'm down. Well, from my peak, I'm down about 90, and that's
Wow.
all happened since I've gotten the bike. So it's
Wow.
been it's been a big part of kind of my health journey, I guess.
That's amazing.
So
What else are
yeah,
you
yeah.
doing? What else are you doing exercise wise with the bike? Other stuff too?
Um,
Or,
I put a basketball hoop up in my driveway, so I shoot little baskets every now and then. But most of my and walking, I've got a dog, so I do a lot of walking with the dog. So between walking and biking, that's my main forms of exercise right now.
oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
Hmm.
Something that intrigued me is this construction accident you brought up. So I'm just curious to hear a little more about that. So after that happened, were you in the hospital for a while? Or were you unable to walk? And then,
I was very lucky actually. I was on the roof of a building and I was starting to come down, and I got one leg on an extension ladder and the bottom of the ladder slid out from under me.
what were
So
you just?
I
Sorry, just to interrupt. What were you doing on the
uh,
roof? Just curious.
roofing,
Roofing.
putting a
Okay.
roof on.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And so the extension ladder slid out from under me, and fell, and my leg was caught in the ladder, so my legs were up in the air, and I landed kind of like on my hip, and so that crushed the three uh, discs in my lower back. I didn't have surgery till like a year later. I did all the physical therapy, the injections, all this stuff, and and then had to fight the insurance company as well, but because that's the American way. but but fine. So I got my back fixed, stabilized. I wouldn't say it's still fixed because I still deal with chronic pain and stuff, almost 20 years later. Um, but yeah, it changed my whole life, because I was always so active previously, and I rode when I was younger. I mean, I had a Schwinn 10 speed because everybody in Chicago had a Schwinn back then.
Of course, that's where they were
And
made, right?
I rode, yeah, I mean, they were hometown brand. Um, so I rode A lot. I didn't do like a lot of distance riding and stuff back then because I had so much other things going on that, um, it was just something I did occasionally. After the accident, it became my main form of exercise. Um, and so that required, you know, something a little bit more comfortable that my body could handle, design wise, sitting up straight, having my legs out in front of me, being flat footed, all that kind of thing. So, um, and the Every Journey's been amazing. I've been thrilled with it, and it looks good. I get compliments on it all the time. Um, I get
Now,
like one of my stops on my lakefront uh, on the lakefront path is, of course, Buckingham Fountain. So you got to, go across Lakeshore Drive and go over to Buckingham Fountain and hang out a little bit. And there's always tourists there, and they're always very complimentary about the
oh,
bike. Hey,
nice.
that's a cool bike, cool bike. I like your bike. What kind of bike is that? So it's a good conversation starter.
That's awesome. And for those of you
Yeah,
that don't know, Buckingham Fountain is in the opening credits of Married with Children. Um,
that's right.
if we,
Yeah.
if we have any viewers that used to watch Married with Children back in the day, so
hmm
that was always a highlight to see that. I did many
Yeah.
years of rollerblading around Buckingham Fountain, which I'm sure would
Okay.
not make them too happy these days. But
No,
yeah,
no.
there are some good
Yeah.
places to do the rail slides and whatnot with your
hmm
rollerblades because the
Yeah.
kind of marble areas.
Yep.
Yeah. Um,
hmm
so that's interesting. So now when you ride, do you experience pain in your back when you're on the bike or not usually, or is it just sore?
No, and that's the amazing thing because even when I had my townie, um, one of the places I used to ride when I was still living out in the suburbs, I grew up in Plainfield, so I lived, there until I moved up here 13, 14 years ago. Um, I
Right
used to
next to
ride
Naperville.
the, yeah, right, yeah, but I was in the 815. I used to ride the I&M Canal Trail a lot, which goes from basically Joliet all the way west to LaSalle, Peru. Um, the I&M Canal, the Illinois and Michigan Canal, was a canal that kind of bypassed the river until you get to deeper water, and then you can navigate to the Mississippi. But they turned the towpath into a bike trail years ago, so I'd ride that all the time. And I found that my limit was always like 15 to 18 miles because I'd get really sore. My behind would get real sore. My back would get sore. I'd start, um, getting numb or things like that. And part of it was probably seat positioning and just the seat was kind of hard. It wasn't real comfortable. So I always felt limited on that bike, even though I felt comfortable. My body was telling me something different. Things were happening that I'd hit a wall. I couldn't go any further. Um, since I've gotten the Every Journey, I last summer I actually rode the Lakefront Trail end to end, which is 36 and a half miles about. I did that 3 times
Wow.
and felt great. Felt great. Other than obviously the fatigue of riding that long, but no soreness, no numbness, none of the other problems that I ever had before. So my goal was to do a 40-mile ride last year, and I came up a couple miles short because it started raining on me, and I'm like, it's raining. I got to get back to my car. I can like 2 miles to go, and I didn't want to ride in the rain. So that my goal last year was to do 40, and it just never happened. But I did, like I said, the lakefront end to end 3 times by the end of the summer, and that was a good 36 and a half miles. So
Yeah, it's
um,
amazing.
yeah, and felt great. So um, hopefully this summer I can get out and do some more longer distances.
When you're riding 36 miles, what are the accessories you have with you, or what are you bringing on those rides?
Food and drink.
Yeah.
No, my so my go-to, I got the rack bag now because I won a rack bag last year from you
Of
guys.
course you did.
So
You're our top
I've got
riders.
so I've got a handlebar bag that I used to try and cram a bunch of stuff in. And then I got the rack bag. Well, I used to have a I got a basket too, so I was using the basket before that, and I would just put a cooler in the basket and carry that. And I'd bring my my Gatorade Zero and my protein bars, and sometimes I might pack a little yogurt or something if I'm doing a long ride like that. So that's basically it. My Gatorade Zero and my protein bars, and then um,
You
if I
said cramming a
throw
bunch of crap in the front bag. Like, what are you putting in there? Like, do you
I
ever? I'm just.
try and I would try and stick a Gatorade bottle
Oh,
in there, but when
oh, oh,
you got
got
your
it.
wallet and your keys and your tools that you got to carry with you, that everything's like hanging out of the bag, and if you hit a bump and stuff goes flying. So having the rack bag has been good because, like I said, I even like if you on a cooler day, if you go out with a jacket or a sweatshirt on and you start working up a sweat, I can roll that up and stick it in the bag and not have to tie it around me or tie it around my handlebars or whatever. So um,
But you're
the
bringing
rack
tools
bag is
tools
cool.
with you?
Oh, I always have. Yeah, I've always got like a set of Allen wrenches to keep on hand in case something gets loose. Um, I think I carry a pair of pliers in case I got to adjust a cable or something. I've got tire levers in case I have to change a tube, although I don't generally have a tube with me, which I ran into that problem a couple of years ago too. I was out on a ride on uh, it was the Centennial Trail, which is part of the I&M Canal Trail, but it's like north of Lockport. So from Lockport north to Lamont, up in that area, and I got like 4 miles out, and I got a flat tire, and I had just taken my pump off my bike because and this was on my Townie, not on this one. Um, I'm like, I never use the pump. I'm gonna take the pump off, and then I get a flat tire. And I just put new tires on the bike too, and I don't know, I must have hit something. But thankfully, within a couple minutes, some guy came by and he had a patch kit and we able to get the tube out, fix it, put it back on, pump it back up, and away I went. So I was very lucky that this guy came along at the time. But it was a lesson learned,
Yeah, yeah,
carry stuff with
absolutely.
you, have stuff with you. So I've got my little pump that attaches to the frame. I've got to put that on this bike. And I've just got some new tubes and stuff. So once I start getting out and doing some distance, I got to start packing a lot of that stuff. But yeah, I always carry a few things with me because you never know, um, what kind of jam you're going to get in. So
Yeah,
good to be
absolutely.
prepared. Hmm.
So I'm just curious on that 36-mile trip, are you stopping every few miles or are you going the whole way straight?
Um, I think generally I always stop halfway. Um, I think on those, I think I stopped only at the south end. So I generally park, if you're familiar with Chicago and the lakefront, I usually either park at Montrose Harbor or a little bit further north at Wilson. And the trail goes north from there only like another mile and a half or two. And then there's like a roundabout, and then you can go all the way down to South Shore, which is almost to Indiana, really, as you go around the curve of the south end of the lake. So riding from the north side down to South Shore, 18 plus miles, that's always a stop. And that area, it's funny, I had never ridden south of 31st Street until last year. So I had never ridden through Hyde Park, which is where the Museum of Science and Industry is, or Jackson Park, which is if, where the World's Fair was held. If you're familiar with the story, The Devil in the White City, that's all about the World's Fair of 1893. That was held in Jackson Park. And then South Shore, it's absolutely beautiful down there. And the South Side gets kind of a bad rap. Um, in the news and stuff, but that area of the city is just absolutely gorgeous. And I fell in love with it the first time I rode down there, which induced me to do it again and again. But it's beautiful down there. So to take a break down by South Shore, it's just very relaxing down there. It's trees and breeze off the lake and then a beautiful view and everything. So if not even to rest, it's just to kind of soak in the scenery a little bit and have a
Oh
little
yeah.
drink a Gatorade and something to snack on before you head back up north. Um, and then just try and get all the way back and do the loop at Hollywood and then come back to the car. So it's
That's
kind of my
amazing.
routine when I do the lakefront. But generally, I mean, I don't know. I ride the lakefront a lot, but I don't generally do the whole thing. I'll generally do um, my average is probably 20 miles because I always go to Montrose or Wilson and then ride down to 31st Street and back, and that's a 20-mile ride. So that's a pretty good ride. And they
Absolutely.
actually fixed some of the trail. They put a new flyover bridge. Used to get kind of hairy by Navy Pier because you'd have to like go under and then get into traffic on the sidewalk, and it was actually kind of dangerous. And they put a new flyover ramp through that area, um, which has made it a lot safer. Plus, they've separated the pedestrian path and the bike path as well, so you're not trying to get
That's
around people walking and running and
yeah, yeah.
scooters and everything else. So it's a lot safer than it was a couple years ago. But it's
That's great.
beautiful. I mean, it's a beautiful view. It's a beautiful view of the city, um, and it's all paved and it's a great ride. You just got to watch which way the wind is blowing because you don't want to be riding back with the wind in your face. So if the wind's coming out of the south, you head south first, so you have the wind blowing you back home. I got a when there was one ride last year where I was going south and I had the wind coming out of the south and I got down to like 31st Street and I started coming back and the weather changed and the wind shifted and I had the wind in my face coming out of the north on the way back. And it's like, oh, it's just like those stories that your parents would tell you where you had to walk through the snow uphill to school. It was uphill both ways. And this day I had the wind blowing in my face for 18, 20 miles both ways. So
Hey, that's when the
like they
electric
say,
bike would
if you
come in
don't, if you,
handy.
well, I know, and it's funny. I have mixed feelings about the electric bike. I've seen a lot of them on the paths, um, obviously the last couple of years, and most people are pretty good. Some people get a little bit too fast, but as an athlete, um, and I still have the athlete's mentality. I almost feel like, oh, if I rode an e-bike, that would kind of be cheating, and like I'm not getting my work in, but
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
60 now too. I just turned 60, and it's funny. I was just watching your video for 60 and over riders and stuff. I'm like, man, I'm in that group now. I don't know how that happened, but I am. And you do feel things changing, and your body changes, and you're mentally you think you can still do things, but your body reminds you that you've got 6 decades under your belt, and you can't do the things you used to do. So I would love to try an e-bike sometime just to see what it's like. Um, but I gotta get my workout in. I gotta do the pedals.
Well,
I gotta
I
feel
will
like I'm doing.
say,
I gotta earn my exercise.
yeah, yeah. Well, I will say the beauty of the e-bike is you choose how much it works for you or not. But I was going
Hmm.
to bring up here, so Joel uses the app. I don't know do you use the app on every ride you do or the 630 app that is?
I do. Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
I got some of your
Yeah.
stats
Yeah.
here up in
Hmm.
front of me. My research team
Oh
provided me
no.
with all the stats. So Joel's longest ride is 3 hours and 17 minutes. Your farthest ride is 36 and a half miles. You've ridden a total
Yeah. Yeah.
of,
Yeah.
well, you hit the 900 mile milestone. So you're probably somewhere around 900 to 1,000 miles total with the app, that is. Because we didn't have the app probably when you first got the
Yeah.
bike.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
You've passed
Hmm.
over 100 hours on your bike. And so we just added the feature to track it to your specific bike. So this is not going to account for all the miles on your bike, but I can see in the app it says
Hmm.
326.5 miles on the every journey, 25 rides, 37 hours. But the app only came out in April of 2021, and we didn't add the bike tracking feature, I think, till a little bit later. So that's a lot of miles, though.
Yeah.
So and everything you're telling us in these stories matches
All
up. So
right.
everyone knows you're not lying.
I
But
would not lie to you, fellow Chicagoan. You'd be able to call me out anyway
yeah, yeah. No,
if
I didn't. Some people may pad their miles a little bit, right, just to make it seem like you can, push a little further. But everything you said matches up
Yeah,
exact to the app.
now that you bring that up, I mean, yeah, I've probably done even more. I mean, because like you said, we didn't have the app until what, a year ago, a little over a year ago, maybe. So,
Yep.
um, yeah.
So I'm curious, what brought you back to the city from the suburbs after being in the suburbs?
Uh, so my partner here, my Christine, she works for Blue Cross Blue Shield of Illinois, and got pretty fed up with the commute.
Okay,
You
gotcha.
could say. I remember she came home one day and she's like, "Oh, I'd spent 4 hours in the car today. I'm not doing this anymore." So that was how we ended up here. Um,
And I'm
but
curious, would you
yeah,
say, oh,
it's different. What's that?
yeah. Would you say in your mind, do you feel like Chicago is a pretty bike friendly city?
It is. Yeah, in fact, just saying that, if I was still living out in the suburbs, I would not probably not be biking as often because you don't have the biking infrastructure out there. Um, Although, the Joliet area, the Will County Forest Preserve, I actually work for them and do volunteer work for them. They've been really active over the last few years, um, creating new trails and trying to connect a lot of these trails in the area together to give you a little bit more continuity in getting places around the area. So that's good to see that happening out there. But um, there's a lot of disconnected trails. Like you can ride so far, and then it just comes to a stop, and it's like, now you got to go back on the road, or you got to ride on a sidewalk. Chicago's been, pretty proactive about creating bike infrastructure. Um, there's there's always wouldn't say controversy. There's a lot of the bike lanes that we have here are just like painted on the roads. And that's nice to have that, but it's not always really safe. There are certain roads that thousands of people commute on every day. Um, but because the lanes are just painted, you tend to see a lot of accidents. We've got ghost bikes up all over the city from people that have gotten hit by cars and killed, and we've got a really active advocacy group up here called Bike Lane Uprising. So they do a lot of advocacy for safer biking infrastructure. So we're starting to see more protected bike lanes, whether
Mm-hmm.
that's raised
Mm-hmm.
curbs, or instead of having cars parking along the curb, what they do is they move the cars closer to the road and then have the bike lane along the curb. So we're
Mm.
starting to see more creation of protected bike lanes. And even like when you get closer to downtown, you'll even get to certain streets, like Washington Street is one that I'm familiar with right off the top of my head, where you've actually got dedicated traffic signals for bike lanes. So
Oh,
it's
wow.
like you get to an intersection and everybody's got to stop, but then you'll see the bike shaped light up above will turn green, and that's for so the bikes can get through that intersection late safely. So we are seeing a lot more um, safer bike lanes. They're always adding more miles of bike lanes. Of course, we've got the divvy bikes up here now. So there's like these rental stations all over the city. Every neighborhood has them, where you can just go up, and if you got the Divvy app, you can just rent a bike and pull it out of the rack and go. And they're starting to do e-bikes as well. So Chicago is a hugely bike-friendly city. It's great. It's
That's
great. It's
amazing.
easy. I can get on my bike right here. I'm a block away from a bike lane, and I can literally get anywhere in the city in bike lanes.
That's amazing. So
Hmm.
before we wrap up here, summer is upon us. You
Okay.
mentioned that you wanted to do a
Yeah.
40-mile ride.
Yeah.
Um, what do you think? So in terms of your biking, your 630, what are your goals, plans for the summer? 3 days a week? Is that the target?
Yeah. I mean, 3 days a week is pretty average for me anyway. I do
Hmm.
want to get a trailer for my dog. Um,
Okay.
I just my I go to the dog park every morning. Every morning I take my dog. I have this routine. My cat wakes me up at 5:45 every morning, like, "Hey, dude, time to get up." I'm like, "But I don't want to get up." And he's like, "No, you got to get up." So I get up, feed the cats, and then try to sit down for a minute. And then the dog comes out, so I'm gonna feed the dog. And then once the dog comes out, we go to the dog park and spend like an hour, hour and a half at the dog park. So um, we
Normally
actually
you
just
walk there or drive there?
no, I drive there now, but that's why I want to get the trailer
Hmm.
because um, during the pandemic, we just had a new bike path open right along the Chicago River. I'm like 2 blocks away from the Chicago River. So they actually built the bike trail on the river. So they like put a gravel bed down and built the bike trail, and it just goes along the river, but it connects to um, the a park which connects to the North Shore Channel Trail, which you can ride from the north side of Chicago straight up to Evanston. So that's like a 20-mile round trip. So I'm like 2 blocks away from that now. But the park is the park where I take my dogs. So my goal is to get a bike trailer and then get my dog into the bike trailer so that we can just ride to the park every day rather than driving. So that's one goal. But yeah, to get out, 3 days a week and try to do, 60 to 100 miles a week is a pretty good goal.
Wow,
Um,
that's amazing.
just to get active again because, winters are tough in Chicago, and this spring has been not a lot of fun either. So it's been like, oh, I want to get out and haven't been able to get out. So I'm kind of itching to get back out riding more often again.
Well, that's awesome. Well, if anyone wants to download the 630 app, you can follow Joel on there and everyone else on the leaderboard. He'll always be there. And we're going to be following you. I'm always excited to see your posts and see where you've been riding. And hey, if you ever get super ambitious, maybe make a trek out to Naperville and do a little river walk downtown Naperville bike ride.
Yeah,
That'd be fun.
yeah, yeah. Hopefully they'll get the DuPage River Trail done. That's part of that whole what Will County is doing. If they can get that all put together and organized, it would be great to be able to ride from Naperville to Joliet and all that. So yeah, look forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Joel. Well, I appreciate you being on today.
Thanks, Dustin.
Yeah, love to hear your journey, your experience, and everything that's been going on with your bike and your life. And thanks again. And don't forget, download the 630 app, visit us on 630.com, and tune in for the next My Journey, My Experience podcast coming soon. Thanks, Joel.
See ya.